Hello, truth seekers. Lawrence here, and welcome to Easy Enlightenment. So, some level of discipline is definitely needed in the inward journey in the spiritual path. Why? Because everyone is already conditioned physically, mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. And because of the conditioning, discipline is needed to undo all conditioning in oneself. However, right now, the world is moving in a way that people are over efforting in this spiritual path, overly disciplining in a way that their own work, the spiritual, so called spiritual work, is making them turn their face away from the truth. That's what's happening. The truth exists in the plain sights, it's within, it is the fearless simplicity. And that is the consciousness itself. And everybody already knows that who we are is the consciousness. It is in the plain sight. But right now, people are having a hard time to reclaim the truth of oneself. And the reason to fail to recognize the plain sight truth itself is the over efforting. Definitely, there's an interest to be free. Interest is there, and because of the interest, and without knowing what true spirituality is and not knowing how, make people get lost in the spiritual path. The eagerness makes people turn their face away from the truth. Again, plain sight truth is what we're supposed to look, and people are ignoring the plain sight with their effort, with their participation, and moving away from the truth. People are doing lots of trainings to figure out the truth. People are traveling all around the world to see the guru and hoping the guru will provide the real message. And from meeting people traveling around the world, what's happening is people are collecting more credential, which is the ideas. And from that ideas, people going through the experience and collecting more beliefs in them, more experience in them. And the plain sight truth is not an idea nor an experience or the visual effect in oneself. None of them are true when it comes to the plain sight. There's nothing wrong to explore in the beginning. But when we get caught up with exploring for more and more, that is already the ego stepping into the spiritual work. And ego is doing the spiritual work and seeking non-stop manner. And even you meet the guru who is awakened, if you meet that person is helping you to point the fingers at yourself and will give the reference of dismantling the ego, which is the self inquiry or self examination of the self to dismantle all self. Self is the ego. So that's the message if you meet a real guru. Tendency is most of the time you won't meet a real guru. And that's the problem. When you don't meet a real guru, all the guru you meet along the way is only giving you more ideas, which includes more techniques, more practice that will make you turn your face away from the simple truth. So that is already happening in in most of the spiritual seekers' life. That's what's happening. And now we can also point the fingers at ourselves. If that is happening in the world, in the spiritual seekers, you are also seeking, isn't it? So you can reflect, am I doing that? Am I turning my face away from the truth? Or am I facing towards the truth and doing the real work? Ultimately, we all have to turn the fingers at ourselves and do the work. And the work is dismantling the mind. Dismantling the mind is the only way to head back to the plain sight truth. Dismantling takes us to the emptiness. And that when you reach the emptiness, that's what we are. You are the consciousness, and the nature of the consciousness is pulsing, conscious, and at the same time empty. So your nature is empty. And to get to that, what we need is to empty ourselves, not to hold a credential and experience, and not to hold the visual effect that you go through in your spiritual path. Those spiritual experience of mystical experience, the visualization, yes, can be a inspiration. However, those experiences still not true, because truth is simple, it's not complex. And especially when when the experience is above the mundane, when people go through those experiences, it's easy to get lost in the experience. People become the spiritual junkies. Just like we see the addicts, right? Drug addicts. They are, lost in their own world through substances. And they seek for more and more just to ignore the reality, living reality, and their own reality, which is the plain sight truth, lost in a different kind of freedom. And people who are in the spiritual path are also lost because of the spiritual addiction. Meditation has become the addiction. That's the reality right now. People are doing meditation, sitting in the meditation and doing hours and hours of meditation. That is an addiction. The person has already become the spiritual junkie, hoping all the junk will dissolve eventually, but it will not. That's the sad reality. Only way to dissolve is dismantling. And what's happening again right now is holding on to that identification, which is the techniques, the meditation techniques, and focusing intensely. And from there, then there's a visual effect happens in the person. And that visual effect is also happening from the conditioned mind, is the self-coloring and additional experience, the past and future combining in the spiritual, in the mystical experience. And people are lost in that. And people are continuously seeking for the mystical experience. And people who continuously seek for the mystical experience, they are the spiritual junkie. And these people don't want to hear they are a spiritual junkie. Why? Because the purpose of the spiritual practice is to become free, to dissolve all the layers. That was the intent, to be free. But being part of the spiritual practice, people get lost in the spiritual path and get addicted in the spiritual path. Eventually, the person will have to lose that spark. There's a saying, what goes up has to come down. So whatever amazing experience people go through in this, in the so-called spiritual path, that effect will fades away. And to really detach from all the distraction that is on the path is by doing a self-reflection. Am I free from my mental drama? Am I free from the fear? Fear is the psychological entanglement, emotional entanglement. Am I free from my fear? So when the person questions oneself, then this kind of question will help the person to disengage and not to get lost with the visual effect or the mystical experience. So, reflection is a good way to disengage from the distraction. So the real work can be placed in for the freedom. Again, I said that some level of discipline is required, but not crazy in a way that we get lost in the path. And the simple work is you do the work every day, a little bit of dismantling the mind. That's all. Do the part of dismantling the mind every day. And this is the missing piece of the inner freedom. The reason to be part of the spiritual work is to be free from the mind and its byproduct, which is the fear. Fear of many stuff is making us be part of the spiritual work. So, to be free from the mind, we have to work on our own mind in dismantling. Here's another illusion in the people that sitting in a meditation and controlling the mind is dissolving the mind. It is not. Controlling your mind, controlling your body definitely will help you to minimize the mind. You can even go towards a simple mind. And that practice is helping you in the relative world, but that practice is never helping you to be free from the mind, because a simple mind is still a mind that is still a positive mind. And figuring out the truth of who you are is going beyond duality, beyond the positive and negative. Because who you are is not positive, who you are is not negative mind. Who you are is emptiness. That is the plain sight truth. The consciousness itself is empty. To reclaim who you are, you have to empty yourself, not holding on to the positive mind, not holding on to the simple mind. So how to get to the emptiness of who we are is dismantling. So if you do a little bit work of every day of dismantling, you will stay sane, you won't go crazy. And from that dismantling work, you will be able to see the progress. Once you see why the suffering is there, then you can rearrange yourself in the world already. Even you haven't seen the truth yet, being part of the self-inquiry practice already make you aware how to be part of the world enough. But don't stop there though. You got to go further. You don't want to get distracted with being able to handle some of the stuff. Even you're able to handle some of the stuff, the fear is still there. So we want to eliminate the fear for good. And how to do that? Going further in dismantling the mind, not holding the positive aspect of the mind, not holding the relative truth. Relative truth is still not freedom. So make a habit of doing the self-inquiry. And to make it more dynamic, you just be aware of yourself. Learn to be aware of yourself. And there's always some level of friction you will experience in your life. And every time you experience a friction, you can work on your friction. Why I have this friction in me? Or why do I have this resistance that is resurfacing in me? Why I have this urge to fight? Why do I have this urge to control? So there's always something happening in everyone's life. And if we take the seat of the observer and be aware of ourselves, then we catch ourselves, we catch our experience, and then we can work on our experience. And whatever experience is there, you dismantle. You ask yourself, why am I experiencing the way I'm experiencing? And you can, start with that. That is the helpful spiritual work that will make you understand your mind, understand why the fear, why the struggle is there in your life. Self-inquiry will help you. So be part of that. Don't sit in your meditation and close your eyes and ignore your issue. That doesn't help you. And you know that if you have been part of the if you have been part of the meditation practice and if you're just sitting, it's not helping you to eliminate your fear. The only way, I'll tell you, the only way to eliminate the fear is witnessing your mind, dismantling your mind to see the root cause of why we hold on to the mind. And that's the point. We have to understand that we have to let go of the mind to be free, because who we are, not the mind. Who we are is no mind. The spiritual practice is asking us to let go the identification. And that's where the fear starts to resurface. And we have to work further in dismantling the fear. And that's the way to go to no fear, no mind. If this is confusing you, don't worry. Whatever you experience in your life, you dismantle that first. Let that be the habit. Life itself is an opportunity to come back to yourself by being part of the equation, by tracing your experience back. Why am I experiencing the way am I experiencing? right? You know, you see what you're experiencing, and you question why you're experiencing so and so. So let's not deny there is no experience. There is experience of friction. There is experience of struggle. So accept it and work on it by this tracing your experience back. When you ask, why am I experiencing this friction, this heat, this frustration, this anger, this madness, there's always the reason for the circumstances that is all unfolding right now. When you ask the question, there is a reason. Whatever reasons resurface, use that answer to move further inward by asking, why is that important? So this is a simple process. This is the way to trace your mind backward until you hit no mind. And tracing the mind becomes, when that becomes a thorough work, you will already understand the nature of the mind and how the mind come into existence and how the mind becomes a reality, how you are the mind right now. That becomes a preparation. That becomes a ground. Self-inquiry becomes a ground to make the final click to see the truth. If you have done your work enough, when you ask yourself, who am I? That who am I will make you be free from all the mental entanglement, emotional entanglement, psychological entanglement. If the unbiased, uncompromising effort is there in dismantling the mind. So, again, discipline is needed, but that discipline is about self-inquiry, about tracing the mind backward. Okay? It's needed to undo all conditioning, but don't get lost in extreme effort in a way that where you create a trap for yourself, where you end up losing the real path for the sake, for the sake of distraction. Anyway, I hope this video makes sense to you. Yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now. Bye.